For millennia, humans have gazed into the infinite expanse of the cosmos, pondering our solitude in the universe. Through imagination and ingenuity, we've sent out radio waves into the black void, explored celestial enigmas, and yearned for a definitive sign that we are not alone. Now that dream may have become a chilling reality. Initially, a routine observation of an obscure interstellar object, dubbed 3I Atlas, has led to what might be the most extraordinary astronomical discovery in human history. It wasn't its origin that astounded scientists, nor its trajectory, brightness, or eerie silence. It was what lay within it. The James Webb Space Telescope, silently orbiting 1,000,000 miles from Earth, captured something that defied every expectation. Not a comet, not a rock, but something that behaved as if it were alive. As astronomers delved deeper into the mystery, they encountered evidence that forced them to reconsider everything they thought they knew about space, life, and our place in the cosmos. 3I Atlas may not just be passing through our solar system, it might be studying us, and even more alarmingly, it might be reacting to us. From the moment 3I Atlas was spotted near the edge of the solar system, something about it disturbed astronomers. Its brightness was unnatural, far too intense for an object of its size. Normally, comets brighten due to outgassing as frozen materials vaporize as they approach the sun, creating glowing tails of gas and dust. However, Atlas glowed with a sharp, clean precision, too constant, too stable, as if the light wasn't reflected at all, but generated. This caught the attention of NASA and ESA almost immediately, and telescopes from Chile to Hawaii began tracking it. It was James Webb that was tasked with answering the deeper questions. With its unprecedented infrared sensitivity, it wasn't just looking for light. It was measuring heat, mapping the object's thermal fingerprint. What it found was shocking. Atlas wasn't just warm from solar radiation. It was emitting heat from deep within, focused at its center, radiating outward in pulsing waves. This kind of internal heat suggested something far beyond geology. The pulses were rhythmic, irregular enough to seem natural, yet structured enough to imply design. It was as if the object was breathing, alive not in the biological sense perhaps, but certainly in a mechanical or energetic one. And from that moment on, the scientific community stopped referring to 3I Atlas as a comet. Behind closed doors, some had begun calling it the Visitor. As Webb continued its scans, other instruments joined in. Radio telescopes began picking up a strange electromagnetic haze surrounding the object. At first, it was dismissed as background noise, static, the kind of interference every deep space observer has seen 1,000 times. But something in that static was off. Teams at MIT and Harvard ran 4-year transforms, mathematical breakdowns to isolate patterns within the chaos, and buried within that noise, they found it, a repeating signal. Not the regular thump of a pulsar or the decaying hum of radiation. This was something else. The pulses were spaced at almost perfect intervals, but with just enough variation to mimic language, or at the very least intent. It was subtle, so subtle that it could have gone unnoticed. But the more they analyzed it, the clearer it became. This was not a random emission. It wasn't something Atlas was simply leaking into the void. It was broadcasting, and worse. It might have been listening. The narrow band it used matched frequencies close to our own communication and guidance systems. The signal changed slightly when solar wind increased, or when observatories coordinated their efforts across the globe. It was behaving as if it were aware of its surroundings, adapting in real time. That's when whispers began to circulate. This wasn't a natural object, it was responding. Then came the flare. For weeks the object remained relatively stable, drifting through space with its pulsing heat and silent signal. Until one day, without warning, Atlas erupted. In a span of less than 2 minutes, its brightness surged by 40%, a sudden, violent outburst, unlike anything ever seen in a natural body. But it wasn't chaotic. It was perfectly symmetrical, almost surgical. At the exact same moment, Webb detected a spike in thermal energy, a heat bloom that radiated outward and then stabilized, as though something inside the object had switched on. Scientists were stunned. This wasn't ice sublimating. This wasn't pressure building from trapped gases. This was a system activation. It was the difference between a campfire, catching wind, and someone flipping a light switch. And the timing, chilling. The flare occurred as Atlas passed a specific point in the solar system, a region near Earth's orbital plane. It was as if it crossed a threshold and reacted. Immediately after the flare, its thermal signature changed permanently. It wasn't the same object anymore. Something inside had awakened. And just days later, astronomers noticed something else. Atlas had altered its course. Objects in space don't just change direction. Comets don't steer. They obey the laws of gravity, of radiation pressure, of momentum. But Atlas was now drifting off its predicted trajectory, not wildly, but with measured precision. At first it was just a slight drift, a few arc seconds here and there. But over the next few days the deviation became undeniable. It was as if the object had corrected its path. And not just randomly, its new course brought it closer to Earth's orbital neighborhood. Not a direct collision, nothing that would trigger planetary defense protocols. But close enough to be noticed, close enough to raise alarms, analysts pored over the data. Maybe it was a gas jet, they suggested. Maybe a miscalculation. But nothing matched. The trajectory shift occurred hours after the flare. The timing was too aggressive. The time was too early to get the plane out of the plane. The timing was too exact. It was as though the flare and the course correction were linked, as if one had triggered the other. And the most unnerving possibility of all, that whatever was inside 3i Atlas analyzed us and adjusted its position in response. That we weren't looking at an object anymore, but a system, a construct, something that wasn't just passing through but performing a mission. After the trajectory shift, a new anomaly emerged. James Webb's spectrometric data revealed oscillations, not in temperature or light, but in electromagnetic field strength, rhythmic fluctuations emanating from the object's core that resembled something scientists had only seen once before in biological systems. Dr. Leona Kuresh, a biophysicist who had been brought in as a consultant, immediately recognized the pattern. The frequency of the fluctuations mimicked that of cellular respiration, specifically the oxygen cycle in microbial life. Of course, no one was suggesting that Atlas had lungs, but the fact remained. The object was cycling energy with the timing, regularity, and efficiency of something living, or worse, something designed to mimic life. When supercooled plasma simulations were run to test alternative explanations, none reproduced the waveform. The conclusion was as surreal as it was simple. This pattern could only emerge from an adaptive energy regulating system. Whether artificial or organic, it was no comet. And then, as if a veil had been lifted, 3i Atlas went silent. Its pulses, radio, infrared, thermal, flatlined. The electromagnetic oscillations disappeared. Webb couldn't detect a single fluctuation. Earth-based telescopes lost lock on its light signature. It was as if the object had simply powered down or cloaked itself. For 6 hours, the world's most advanced observatories stared into space and saw nothing where Atlas should have been. Not darkness, not shadow. Void. That silence hit differently. It wasn't passive. It was intentional. Scientists described it as too perfect, as if the object had responded to their curiosity with withdrawal. It was no longer sending signals. It was hiding. But just as suddenly as it vanished, it came back online, brighter than ever. The heat signature surged, but this time there was something new embedded in the signal. A pattern, a modulation so complex it took days to decode. And when they did, it left everyone shaken. It was a mirror of one of our earliest Earth-based satellite broadcasts, an old analog telemetry stream from 1983. Somehow Atlas had captured it, stored it, and now was repeating it back. But why? Around the same time, James Webb obtained its clearest imaging yet of the dust trail surrounding Atlas, and what it revealed obliterated every last assumption. Within the debris was not random rock and ice. Instead, Webb detected fragments of structured molecular alloys, including a composition of nickel, vanadium, and a lattice of rare earth elements that simply do not occur naturally. Not only were these metals ultra-pure, but their arrangement was engineered. Dr. Raphael Song, a materials engineer, ran the molecular maps through known human databases. The configuration was nearly identical to experimental materials being studied in advanced AI circuitry. The fragments weren't chaotic leftovers from space formation. They were discarded parts, components, evidence of wear, of maintenance. It wasn't a comet. It wasn't even a ship in the conventional sense. It was a machine shedding its skin as it moved, and each discarded piece told the same story. 3i Atlas was alive, but it was also breaking down, and that begged the most disturbing question of all. If it's deteriorating, what happens when it finally stops? Then came the final piece, the moment when scientists stopped debating and started panicking. Days after Atlas resumed its signals, ground-based observatories picked up an atmospheric anomaly on the Moon, a thin layer of ionized particles never seen before, hovering over the Sea of Tranquility. The source, a focused beam of charged particles that originated from the Atlas object's path, directed with precision to reflect off the lunar surface and bounce back toward Earth. This wasn't random. It was a targeted action, a test, a calibration, a message, and even worse, we responded without knowing it. Satellites caught the beam, amplified it unintentionally through relay stations, and bounced it back into deep space. We didn't send a message. We were made part of one, as if the object had run a handshake protocol, and we'd passed. Atlas had completed something, a scan, a cycle, a loop, and now it was on the final leg of its journey. But to where and for what purpose? From the beginning, we thought we were the observers, the scientists, the ones in control of the telescopes, the instruments, the interpretations. But what if it was never really about us watching 3i Atlas? What if 3i Atlas was built to watch us? It arrived in silence. It glowed with light that defied explanation. It pulsed like a heart, and listened like a mind. It echoed our oldest broadcasts. It shifted its trajectory with precision. It released materials that don't exist on Earth. It mimicked biology and then turned itself off just to see what we do. Every step of the way it was reacting to us, testing boundaries, measuring reactions, probing not our solar system, but our readiness. What the James Webb Space Telescope discovered was not just an interstellar visitor. It wasn't a rock or a comet or a lost probe. It was a trigger, a device, a living, thinking, possibly ancient construct with only one purpose: to be seen, because maybe the message isn't in the pulses. Maybe it's not in the materials or the thermal readings or the spectral anomalies. Maybe the real message is the object itself, its mere presence in our system, its response to our attention, its ability to adapt to our technology. Maybe 3i Atlas isn't just evidence that something out there is alive, but that it has already found us, studied us, tested us, and perhaps judged us. And now, as it drifts silently away from Earth's orbit, having completed whatever it came to do, we're left with one terrifying realization. We didn't just witness something alive witnessed us.